Hello everyone, my name is Seun Jubril and welcome to the first video of my Adobe After Effects Basics and Tips series. I'm very glad you're here and I'm excited for this entire series because through the series we're going to be covering a wide variety of topics in After Effects. So this video is for you if you've never used After Effects before or if you've used After Effects and you're just curious about maybe how to get better in the program, how to get more comfortable, increase your workflow, and if you just want to learn some new things. So you really don't need much. All you just need is Adobe After Effects, which if you don't have, you can get a free trial from adobe.com. It's 30 days, which is awesome, and you just need your computer to follow along. So in this series, we're going to be covering quite a bit of information, but it's going to be very easy to follow. And I believe that if you follow through all this, watch all three videos, you will come out of it learning a lot, and you'll be a lot more comfortable in Adobe After Effects, and you'll be able to make some really cool stuff. So in the first video, we're going to be covering how to start a new project, how to import layers to use in your project. We're going to be covering what layers mean and what they do and what we can do with them. We're going to talk about keyframes and previewing in Adobe After Effects. So when you open up After Effects, this is what you're going to see. Now, mine looks a little bit different from yours because I've taken the liberty to rearrange my panels. And that's something I suggest you play around with if you want to get into After Effects because it really just makes working a lot easier and it really increases your workflow when you're able to like move things to where you want. Like the way I have this, it's just a lot easier for me. And if you want to do it for your Adobe After Effects, it's very simple. Like you just take whatever panel you want and drag it to where you want. I mean, it's very effective. And then you can change the size of the panels and just put it anywhere. So yeah, it's really something I suggest you get into and just play around with. Um, yeah. So that's the panels. That's a little tip. So first on our list is starting a new project. Now there are many ways to start a new project, and we're gonna go through, I believe, about three of them. So the first way is actually going to composition, new composition, and have this window open up. Now the composition name, that's pretty simple. We can name it whatever we want. So let's say we'll call this class project one. That's the name of our composition. Excuse me. That's the name of our composition, and over here is where we change the size of our canvas. So Adobe After Effects comes with some presets for us, like we have film 4K, or we have 1920 by 1080, or 1440 by 1080, 1280 by 720. Usually what I like using is I like to just go to this HD TV 1080 25 frames per second at 1920 by 1080, and I like to work with 30 frames, so you can change your frame rate here. So if your project calls for 23.967, you can change it there, or you can actually go in and change the frame rates manually, and you can do the same thing for the width and height. So let's say you're doing a project and it's the screen that you're making the video for is some weird screen like 1280 by 643. You can just do that, and now it's going to change it automatically. And if you have this checked in, it's going to change it. The lock aspect ratio is going to be on, so when you do 1280, it's automatically going to adjust it. So let's do 720, and it's going to change it to 362 automatically. So if you want to change everything individually, you want to check that. So we're just going to stick to the 1920 by 1080 at 30 frames per second. And below here is where we change the duration of our composition. So let's say we're working for a project and we know it's going to be about 3 minutes. We just go in here, put in the 3, and now the project is 3 minutes, 13 seconds, and 3 frames in. Or we can just do it exactly 3 minutes and change that there. And when everything looks good, we can leave this at black. We can leave resolution at full, square pixels. When that looks good, we just hit OK, and we see that a new composition has been created. We have a timeline down here, and it's exactly 2 minutes, 59 seconds, and 29 frames in 3 minutes. So let's say we figure out down the line that, oh wait, we want to change this. This is not what we want. All we have to do is just go to composition. Make sure you're clicked in this timeline, composition settings, and we can just edit whatever we want. So let's say we have to change the width and height. We can just change that to what we need, like 700 by 1080. And since I have preview checked, it changes it live for me. So I can do like 2000, and that's updated live. So that's just a really cool thing to do, and you can also change the time. So let's say I actually need 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Simple. And it's changed right there for me. So I'm just going to hit cancel because everything looked good the way it is. So we have 3 minutes. So that's one way you can start a project. And another way is, let's say you're making a music video or a kinetic typography video or a lyric video or just something to a specific length for a song or a video. You can just double click, make sure you're in your project panel, and you can just double click in the project panel and find your file to import. So let's say we're working with a song. We just find that and import that. And we just take the file that we imported right over here, we click on it, and we take it and drag it into this create a new composition, and we drag it right into that create a new composition icon, and a new composition has been created. We see it right here, same exact length of the song, file in the timeline, and we can also go to composition settings and change it to whatever we want. So we can change this to nonfiction lyric video, 1920 by 1080, 30 frames. And since it's a lyric video, we want to have like our own personal intro and outro. We can just add like 10 more seconds here. I'm going to take out that 0 and add a 1. 10 seconds has been added. And down here is kind of like your magnifying glass for your timeline. This is where you can zoom in and zoom out. So if I zoom out all the way, I see that an extra space has been added. I can drag this to the middle, and now I have space for an intro and space for an outro. So you can do that with songs, and you can also do it with videos also. So let's say you have a music video that you made in Premiere, you've rendered it out, and now you want to edit it in After Effects. You can just import that video there, and then just take the video and drag into the new composition box, and now a new composition has been created, the same exact length of your video, and you can do the same thing. Composition, change the title, width, length, frame rate, simple. And so that's the second way you can import files. And the third way, you can just go to File, Import. If you want to import just one file, you click there. If you want to import multiple files, you click on multiple files, and you're able to click on multiple files. So those are the two ways you can start a new composition. It's very simple. And we kind of covered importing files. And so just to recap, you can import your files by double clicking in there, going to File, Imports, or you can seriously just drag it. So if you open your folder, you can find it wherever your file is, and you can just drag it into the project window, and it goes in there automatically. So those are the three ways you can import files in After Effects, and through there you can also start a new composition, which is very simple. I like to use multiple ways when I'm working, just depending on a case by case basis. So just find what works for you, and it's really good to know that there are multiple ways, so you're not just constrained to one way. So now that we've talked about starting a new project and how to import your files, now let's go into talk about layers. So if we go back into this class project composition, if I were to take this song, the nonfiction song, and drag it into here, I would see that a new layer has been created for that. And the same thing would happen if I were to take this video and drag it into there. A new layer has been created in my timeline for that. And layers are just pretty much it's just like that file that you've imported. Now that's what you're going to be working with. That's what represents the file. So let's say on this video layer, I want to do something that affects it. Well, all I have to do is just go to Effect, and I can go to Color Correction, maybe Curves, and I'm clicked on the layer. So on this layer, I have the curves adjustment, and this layer represents the video that I'm working with. And then when I edit the curves, I see that it just affects that layer, but it doesn't affect this layer. And so the same thing would go if I wanted to create a new solid in Adobe After Effects. I'll go to Layer, New, Solid. Let's keep it at 500 by 500. And now a new layer has been created for that solid. Or if I want to write a text out, I clicked on the text tool. I'm just going to write new text. And now that we look in our timeline, a new layer has been created. So now if we want to add an effect that affects just this text, all we have to do is just make sure we're clicked in there, and whatever effects we add in here. So we can go to stylize, maybe a glow, and now that's only affecting that layer. Another real cool thing with layers is that, let's say you want to affect everything. Well, there's something called an adjustment layer, where if you put it on top, whatever effects you add to that adjustment layer is gonna affect everything below that adjustment layer. So let's say we go to layer, new, create a new adjustment layer, and then we go to effects, color correction. Let's go to tint, and now the tint effect, as since it's on top of this adjustment layer, it's going to affect everything below this adjustment layer. So just to kind of see how that works, I'm on my adjustment layer on the tint effect, and now when I change the parameters, it's affecting everything. So just so you can see if it's really affecting the text, I have a blue tint on. As you can see, the text now has a blue tint. Now everything has a blue tint, and if I take off the adjustment layer, I see that now it's affecting nothing. So that's just a really cool or really simple thing to do when you have a lot of layers in your timeline and you just want to add one effect that affects all the layers. So instead of copying and pasting it to each individual layers, you just add an adjustment layer that affects everything below that adjustment layer. So now let's go into keyframes. Now keyframes are really awesome. Keyframes are literally what drive Adobe After Effects, and when you understand keyframes, or at least even the basics of keyframes, you can automatically start making some really cool things. So let's talk about keyframes. Now I have this box. Let's say I want to move this box from the left side to the right side. Well, what I need to do is I need to set some keyframes to affect that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this red solid, and I'm going to click on this drop down arrow and click on the drop down arrow for transform. And for opacity, rotation, scale, position, and anchor point, we see this stopwatch icon. And so we know that to move from left to right, that's a position. We're trying to change the position. So what we need to do is we need to click on the position stopwatch or value and change that. So we're going to click on the position stopwatch, and we see that a keyframe has automatically been set for that. So I'm just going to go to where that keyframe has. I'm just going to move it to where I want right here, and then I'm going to zoom in a little bit, go to the 2-second mark. I'm going to click set another keyframe. So you can set keyframes. This is where you set new keyframes. If you click on the stopwatch again, it deletes the keyframe that you just set. I'm going to go back, click on the stopwatch, and now keyframes are automatically set. And I really don't need to click on that stopwatch again unless I want to delete all the keyframes, but I don't. So if you want to add a new keyframe, you click over here on this add or new keyframe at current time. And when it means current time, it means the current timeline marker, wherever that is. So I'm going to add a new keyframe. I'm going to change the value in the position from here to here. So I moved it from 248 to 1622, and we see that a path has been created, and now when I scrub through, we have just created motion. And so let's say we want to add something new. Well, we want to go in the middle. We can add another keyframe, and then we can change the position here, and Adobe After Effects automatically incorporates that. Zoom. So I hope right now you're seeing the possibilities with this. Look how awesome that is. So let's say we want to add a little bit more. Let's say we want this thing to kind of decrease, be small in size, but increase when it comes here, and then decrease when it starts here. Well, we can mess with that with scale, because scale means kind of like the size of it. So the scale of this solid that we've created. So we set a keyframe for the scale. Now that we've clicked on that stopwatch, now we can change it from 100 to 17, and we can move forward to the middle to the 1-second mark. And then we don't, as a matter of fact, we don't even have to be clicking on the add a new keyframe. All we have to do is just change the value, and Adobe After Effects automatically adds a keyframe there. Then we go to the 2-second mark, and we change that back to about 17, and now we've created this amazing, awesome, blown up motion. So that looks awesome to me. I don't know about you, but okay, that's not that awesome. But you could make something awesome with this idea. Another thing with the position, so let's say you want to move it here, but you don't want to be messing with the X and Y just to get it to right over there because that's kind of tedious. Well, with the position, what you can do is you can actually just drag it in the canvas and move it to where you want, and a keyframe is automatically set. As long as this stopwatch is blue, you know that a keyframe, you know that whatever whenever you change the value of it, a keyframe is automatically going to be set. And I believe the stopwatches are blue because it's Adobe CC. But if you're using like Adobe CS6 or CS5 or something like that, the stopwatch is going to be a different color. And I've been using this for quite a while that I can't even remember what the other color is. So don't feel kind of scared if you're using an older version of Adobe After Effects and your colors are different. It's just because of the update and what Adobe wanted. But back to the point, so you can move it in the canvas and the keyframe is automatically set. So this can really go a long way because we can affect definitely more than just position, scale, transform. We can do stuff like affecting the tint. So previously I'd added a tint effect to this adjustment layer. So let's say I kind of want to animate the tint. We see that on this map to whites, there's a stopwatch, and that's big. So whenever you see anywhere in an effect or any parameter where there's a stopwatch, which is going to be like 90% of everything in After Effects, that means that you can animate it. So I'm going to click on the stopwatch for this map to white. I'm going to click on this adjustment layer, and I'm going to hit U on my keyboard, which is a shortcut to pull up all the values that I've edited and that have keyframes in it. And I'm going to just move that over there. I'm going to move forward in 2 seconds. I'm just going to go in the color picker and change that to red. And now we see that Adobe After Effects has automatically animated that from blue to red. Everything with the adjustment layer. And we can also do that with blur. Let's say with this new text up here, I'm going to add an effect like blur, fast blur. I'm going to set I'm going to click on the stopwatch icon. I'm going to hit U on my keyboard to pull that up. I'm just going to move forward 2 seconds and I'm going to edit. You can either edit the value here or edit the value up here. Doesn't matter. And I'm going to just move it to 35. So now I've just created an animation. It goes from 0 to 35 and it just blurs. So the possibilities are really endless. And as you get into Adobe After Effects and whatever project you're making, you start to see that you're going to be setting keyframes, lots of keyframes. The more keyframes you add, the more things you'll be animating, and keyframes is just really going to drive your project. So the possibilities are endless. You can do this with either blur, with either color correction. You can do this with the opacity. So let's say I want to just animate the opacity of this adjustment layer, which is the transparency. So I'll set a keyframe for 0 there, and then it's going to animate to 100 here. So check this out, boom. The opacity has been animated. So remember, whenever there's a stopwatch, you can set keyframes, you can animate it, add as many as you want, make it as intricate as possible and as complicated, and you could just do a lot of really cool stuff. Like if you can think of the motion, you can most likely animate it in After Effects with the right amount of keyframes properly set. So now last on the list is previewing. Now for me personally, there are 3 ways I like to preview. One of the ways I like previewing is RAM preview, and you're probably going to use that a lot. Now RAM preview previews everything, and because it does that, it kind of takes time because it uses the RAM in your computer to preview. So depending on the amount of RAM you have, that really determines how long and how fast the RAM preview is going to be in take. So let's say I want to do a RAM preview of all this just to see all this in action. I just go over here to the preview, and I usually have mine set at half. You can set it at quarter, third, or full. I set it at full when I have the patience and when I just want to see everything in the best quality. And you could also even do that here. Like if your computer is running slow with the compositions and all the effects you're adding, you can change the preview of the composition in the canvas to like full, half, third, or quarter. Half is usually good to work with when you start getting deep into effects, but if you're getting to like isn't stuff like particular, you might find yourself going into third or quarter. But half is a pretty good amount, or you can set it to auto and let your computer determine what it wants. And you can also do auto for RAM preview, but I just like keeping it at half. So I just hit play on RAM preview, and you can see this green bar. There we go.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was practically nothing in there, so it took like 1 second. But when you start adding a lot of effects and a lot of layers, it'll take longer. So this green bar is loading, and then it just loads it for me, and that's real time. So if I rendered out the video, that's what I'm gonna be seeing. So that's one way to preview it, and another way is if you just want to preview like the motion of the effect, you can just hit spacebar on your keyboard, and you can do that instantly, and it just previews that for you. So that's a second way to preview. So you can do RAM preview or spacebar, or if you're working with something like a lyric video and you want to sync the text to the audio, or you just want to sync something to an audio, you can hold control on your keyboard, and I believe for Mac it's command, and you can scrub through your timeline, and it's going to just scrub through the audio and sort of like um, the animation that's going through. So what you can do if you have a lot of effects but you just want to catch the audio is you can just turn off the layers. These are the eye switch, these layer visibility eye switch, so you can just turn that off, and then you can just preview the audio. So I'm holding control and I'm just scrubbing through. So right here I hear that it's about to say fiction, so I can just take the text and drag that layer there, and I'll just type in fiction so you can kind of see fiction. So now when it says fiction, I know that my fiction text is going to come up. So if I do something like RAM preview,
yeah, it's all fact, no fiction.
you see, so that's a really cool way to kind of like get precision, and you could also even just zoom in and just get it frame by frame. So yeah, that's how you can preview in Adobe After Effects. So in this tutorial, we've covered how to start a new project, how to import your layers, how to work with layers, keyframes, previewing, and I really just challenge you to take all that and practice it yourself. Use everything you've learned in this video and just put it to use. And another thing I should have talked about is saving your project, which is very simple. Just go to File, Save, call it whatever you want. So we can call this new project. You can save that right there, and then our project is saved, and now we can go back to it. And so yeah, I really just challenge you to take everything you've learned and put it to work, and just practice, mess with the keyframes, mess with random effects, with the position, create a solid, and just make a weird movement with it and see what you can create. So I hope to see you in the next video, and in the next video we will talk about keyboard shortcuts, motion blur, 3D layer switch, and pre-composing. So thank you for watching this. I hope to see you next time. Peace.